Zay, since you picked the Mavericks, asking you this question: what adjustments do the Mavericks need to make for Game 2?
Well, I think Coach Kidd touched on it in his press conference, but they have to, one, take advantage of the open looks. As you just mentioned, there was not a lot of scoring outside of Luka in this game. Kyrie Irving obviously had an unusual game for him. He spoke on it too. He hasn't had the best offensive games in the playoffs this year, but I don't expect that to happen. So Kyrie will correct himself, I'm sure. But when you're the other guys, if you're looking at Derrick Jones Jr., right, he's been giving you probably in the past 2 series that they've been in, threes a game. Couldn't really knock down shots. Boston was obviously coming out on fire. Dallas was, I think I saw the stat earlier that they were like 6 of 24 on open looks or near wide open looks, something like that. Honestly, I think it was just the energy of the Celtics that kind of got to them. So that's a big thing. They kind of came out with less energy, and I think the energy of the Celtics kind of like shocked them, and they weren't really able to make shots outside of Luka Doncic, obviously. But the other thing, I think they just have to kind of like move the ball. It was kind of like stuck for a lot of the time. Obviously, you got 2 of the best like ISO guys in Kyrie and Luka, but I think they have a better chance of like shifting the Celtics defense, because right now they're pretty steep. And even like when they tried to get the matchup with like Horford, I don't feel like Luka and Kyrie really took advantage of it. So right now the Celtics, they have the defensive edge, or at least they feel like they do, because Dallas, on top of not really making shots, they didn't take the best shots, or they didn't really like pass the ball enough to get really good shots. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, you've got to not turn the ball over. We saw dunk after dunk, and the interior defense was lackluster, to say the least. I was really disappointed, like how I just saw Porzingis coming through there. I saw Tatum coming through there. I saw Brown coming through there. I'm like, man, all these posters in like the span of a few minutes. It felt like just back to back dunks on the Mavericks. And I was like, all right, man, what's going on? So they got to do a better job of protecting the rim and making things difficult for these guys, man. I feel like Boston had a way too easy of a time getting to the rim and getting the shots that they wanted. They have to make these dudes uncomfortable. I'm sure Jason Kidd is going to preach that, and we see something different in Game 2 for sure.
Any concerns about Luka only having 1 assist? To me, it seemed like that was kind of a game plan if you're the Celtics. Luka, we're okay with you getting 30, 35. But we're going to limit everybody else. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that's a big problem, because Luka, obviously, we know what Luka can do. He can score. But the other thing he does is get the team going. And if he's not able to rely on anybody to make shots, or he has to score multiple possessions in a row down the stretch, then the ball kind of sticks, and it's like, all right, they can zone in on him. They need to get other guys involved. These other guys need to be ready to make shots, make plays, or just making, like I said earlier, like just making the right pass so you can get better shots, so you can have a chance. You know what I mean? Like they didn't really, on top of not making shots, if Luka can't get 1 assist, that's a problem, bro. Like, this man is pretty much almost average a double-double for as long as I can remember. So if he's not getting any assists, like to Lively, like even think about the lob threat. That's been killing everyone this whole playoffs. We didn't see that. Like I think Derek Lively had like one shot that he made. Gafford had like a couple. They need him. They need that pick and roll to work. They need to be able to get drives and then kick it out to open shooters. That's what Luka is. And Luka is going to draw the attention. They need to be able to get him some assistance, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Daniel Gafford only had 3 field goals. Derek Lively only had 1. So your Twin Towers only combined for 4 field goals total. Daniel Gafford finished with 8 points. Lively finished with 2. You got to get more out of Derek Lively, man. And to be honest, Derek Lively did have foul trouble in that game, so that saw him get some limited minutes. I will say that. But think about this too. The Mavericks had more turnovers than assists, man. They had 11 turnovers, only 9 assists. That is not going to get it done, man.
Yeah.
Not at all.
For sure, man. And I don't even think it was just because the Celtics were playing the greatest of defense. I feel like Dallas just kind of got, I don't know. I feel like they've played better basketball as far as like taking care of it. But Jaylen Brown was active, bro. I'll give him that. He was active.
Yes,
Pick it up.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown was. One more thing on the Mavericks, man. I want to talk about Kyrie Irving. You did mention that you don't expect Kyrie to have another game like this, but I do want to bring up the Boston crowd. In our last episode in our podcast on the Swish Masters Podcast, I mentioned how the brief history that Kyrie had with the Celtics. Mm-hmm. You know, this is a guy who promised, "Hey, I'll be back," but you didn't. When you do return, when you're part of the Nets, you go off, but you flip the crowd off. Some real vitriol is there, and Kyrie post game, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he said, "I thought it would be louder." So, kind of challenging the Boston crowd to me in a sense. So, you thought it was loud game 1. I'm expecting it to be super loud game 2. But do you think the crowd had any effect on Kyrie and his performance in game 1?
I would say probably. I think I saw something on Twitter saying that he hasn't won a game in Boston, and I think he's like,
it's like 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. We didn't see that stat until this came up. But 0-11, that's wild.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like the crowd necessarily. I think that he just, I'm gonna say part of it was the crowd, but the other part of it was like I said, I think the energy was just not what the Mavericks as a team expected. And Boston isn't an easy place to play in, like as black people. I'm just put it out there. I've heard the horror stories from other teams and players and everything, but on top of that, that's a tough arena. Like, it's historical. You feel like that greatness, you know, that Celtic energy is different. It's for real. I'll give them that. They're one of the top franchises in sports for a reason, and that's a tough place to play in for sure. But I think that just like we saw with like Anthony Edwards, when he said that I got Kyrie in the next series, and Kyrie came out and gave him 30. I think Kyrie takes motivation from the negativity or the booing or the crowd, you know, getting at him. So I hope that he draws up some crazy stuff, because you know he's a wizard with the ball. Like, I hope that he takes the fuel and goes at it for sure. But I'm sure Boston is going to be, if not just as louder for sure.
Yes, yeah. And I want to mention just one more thing about Kyrie. He finished with the worst plus minus of all the starters, by the way. that's saying something to me too. Minus 19 for the night. Played 37 minutes. The worst out of all the starters. Honestly, out of the whole team. Something's going on.
Yeah.
Something's going on. So yeah, that's the Mavericks. I like your notes on the adjustments, what they can do. One thing I think that they're trying to do is play some mind games, man. if you didn't hear this or y'all didn't hear this, man, Jason Kidd today spoke on the Celtics and responded to a reporter's question. And the reporter was asking about Jaylen Brown in general. And Jason Kidd took this route. This is a direct quote. Well, Jaylen is their best player. Kidd said with a sly smile, and he did. I ain't gonna lie. Watch the video. This man is up to some stuff. All right, going back to the quote. Just looking at what he does defensively, he picked up Luka full court. He got the free throw. He got to the free throw line. He did everything, and that's what your best player does. Just understanding he plays both sides, defense and offense, at a high rate, and he's been doing that the whole playoffs. I mean, when you talk about the Eastern Conference MVP, and it seems like he has continued to pick up where he left off. End quote right there. Now, this man brought the Eastern Conference MVP, bro. I was like, I think there's some mental gymnastics going on, bro. Trying to destroy the team from within type stuff. Trying to pit Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum against each other. But I respect Jason Tatum's response, Jaylen Brown's response. Brown basically said he had no reaction. Tatum's reaction was more so like, hey, this is a team sport. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have JB on the squad. We have a lot of guys like that. So we're just trying to finish the job. I'm paraphrasing his quotes, but they had some really good responses. But I want to tackle this kind of question, bro, because he kind of hinted at it in our previous podcast.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. I know Jason Kidd is trying to like stir up some drama or whatever, but I'm gonna say it, man. I'm tending to agree with Jason Kidd. Jaylen Brown could be the best player, bro. I ain't gonna lie. What you think, man?
Bro, this feeds into exactly what we were saying in the last episode. I agree with Jason Kidd. I think that he has. I mean, obviously he's trolling Jason Tatum, obviously, but
we think he could truly believe this, man. I mean, dude,
I think
MVP. He could legit think this.
I legit believe him because that's what I think. I really think that Jaylen Brown is the engine of the team. Tatum obviously is talented. He's a superstar. Not doubting that. But Jason Kidd isn't wrong. I agree pretty much 100%. Like, he does everything on the floor. And I feel that if you take Jaylen Brown out of this lineup, if he's not on this team, they don't make the finals. And that's no disrespect to Jason Tatum. He's a great player for sure, but I don't think he drives the team the way that Jaylen Brown does. I don't know. I keep saying this, but I feel like energy is very important. And for some reason, Jason Tatum's energy doesn't really, like, to me, transfer to the team the same way that Jaylen Brown's does. And also, shout out to Jason Kidd, because I expect this 100% type of troll from him. This was a dude we're talking about who didn't have a timeout, so he had water on the court so he could get a few minutes of like, oh, let's clean this up real quick and huddle my players so we can have an unofficial timeout. So I expect all these type of schemes from Jason Kidd. I love it. So
yeah, I respect it, man. I really do. Let's look at game one itself, bro, for evidence, man. Like, Jaylen Brown was more consistent throughout the whole game. He was definitely more consistent on defense. He finished the game with 3 blocks and 3 steals, man.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Like Jason Kidd was saying, he was picking up Luka full court. That's how he got that one steal that led to a dunk.
Yep.
Like, and Jason Tatum. Let me say this. I give Jason credit for finding the open man, because he was doing a large sum of their playmaking, especially in the beginning of that game.
Yeah, for sure.
He was letting the game come to him, let the game kind of flow. I give him credit for that. But we talked about this last finals, bro. When they were in all these turnovers, man. He had 6 of them. They ain't gonna get it done. He admitted post game, like, hey, I had too many turnovers. I gotta cut those down. But and again, he doesn't bring that same type of energy defensively either, man. He just not that type of guy. And I don't really like this person I'm about to bring up. Well, I respect this person. Have you heard of Nick Wright before? I respect Nick Wright. But he had a decent take though. That maybe you should think of Jason Tatum this way. Do you remember the Pistons?
04. Yeah.
04 Pistons. Chauncey Billups, talented player, high draft pick. But you didn't think of Chauncey as just a franchise guy. You thought of the team as a collective getting the job done. I was like, that's a really good comparison because Jason Tatum, high draft pick. But I don't see him just as just a franchise guy. The Celtics themselves don't even advertise Jason as just a franchise guy. They franchise him as a team.
Yeah.
And shout out to their social media team, by the way, man. They had a crazy highlight reel. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
That mode was nice, bro. But shout out to their team. But going back to Jason Tatum though, but I don't know, man. If I had to pick personally, I would pick Jaylen Brown. Even though we all admit Jason Tatum's more talented or more potential, but at least offensively, but he's not bringing the same thing defensively. So I'd rather have offense and defense. If I'm a GM picking a player.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another route to look at it. Like if you had to do a redraft and they're still happy in the same draft class because they weren't. And a lot of people forget this. Jaylen Brown was drafted first. Yeah. You know, before Jason Tatum later on. Who would you pick first? You know, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, man. I feel like if we were to have this new draft of the Celtics, Jaylen Brown goes before Tatum, and simply because we know the prolific scorer that Jason Tatum is. We know he can give you 40 on any given night, and I think he's capable as a defender. He's a 6'9".
Oh yeah, he's big. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he can do everything that I feel like Jaylen Brown does, but I feel like Jaylen Brown consistently on offense and defense brings the best out of the team. Like, I don't know, man. I think they have it like under control. It's kind of like you brought up the Pistons. I was thinking about, like, for me, the last time the Celtics won the championship, which was the 08 team with KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. I think about like how Paul Pierce won Finals MVP, but to me, KG was the best player because he was controlling both sides. Like, obviously, Paul Pierce was able to get some 30-point games or whatever, and I'm not. People that know me personally know I'm not like a big Paul Pierce fan, but I respect him. He's a really good player, Hall of Famer at that. But to me,
I bet it took you a hard time to say that, bro.
No, I respect him. I think he'll get there.
All right.
I mean, obviously not before DOA, but anyway, that's a different day. We ain't gonna do that. I feel like KG, to me, was the Finals MVP for that team, even though Paul Pierce won the award, because he's the one controlling the defense, and then he's making timely plays on the offensive end. He's making timely baskets as well. So that's how I kind of see these dudes. Like, I feel like Jaylen Brown is the KG with Paul Pierce. Well, Tatum being the Paul Pierce, even though Tatum to me is going to be way better than Paul Pierce.
Yeah. But shout out to Jason Kidd trying to do some Phil Jackson type stuff, bro. I mean, this really is, man. It's a good move, but on the surface, it seems like it's not going to affect the team in any way. But we'll see when it comes to game 2, though.